Virginia Valentine, I've known for quite some time. I met her on the Advanced Practice Provider Advisory Committee for the Board of Nursing, and she has been a clinical nurse specialist for many times, devoting most of her time to diabetes care, obesity, metabolic issues. She likes to manage diabetes and provide education, and got a certification in diabetes education. So she currently works or retired from Clinica La Esperanza. Are you still working?
Yeah.
Still working.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. She also works with Project Echo in the endocrinology hub side, on the team side. So if you have endocrinology diabetes questions and you're on Echo, you'll probably see Virginia. And her fun fact is she has 2 Boston Terriers, one bad and one good. Okay, we're ready to get started.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we're going to talk about the diabetes technology, pens, pumps, and sensors. Oh my. And here's our objectives. We're going to look at, patients who should be using pens, pumps, and sensors, and some of the steps to interpret the ambulatory glucose profile. This is such wonderful technology to be able to get such a huge amount of information, but sometimes it can be overwhelming. So we're going to go through a simple way to interpret the results you get. Here's my disclosures. So who should be using a pen, right? Or connected pen? So this is all new thing. There, we were just used to be excited that a patient could even get a pen, right? Some of us are old enough to remember when some of the insurance companies they wanted them only to have a syringe and vial. Now it's like, yeah, they could have a pen, but how about a connected pen? And this is for people who want to really refine their diabetes control, but maybe they don't want to wear a pump. So we're just at the beginning of this technology, and they store data about when you gave your insulin, how much you gave. They will talk to your sensor, which talks to that. It talks to an app, so you can have the bolus calculator like a pump does. You can put in, it knows what your blood sugar is. You put in how many carbs you're going to eat. It tells you how much to take, and really cool. And for people who forget their mealtime insulin a lot, it can actually remind you. If you normally take it between 7 and 9 in the morning for breakfast, and at 9 you haven't taken it, it's going to go, hey, you need to take your insulin. So these are what some people call smart pens. They're also now being called connected pens. So you don't have to carry around a pump. You don't have anything attached to you. It does the math for you. It can figure out the correction bolus as well. So, you have a certain amount of bolus for mealtime insulin. But if your blood sugar is high, it can also add a little correction. So it can help you calculate that and help you avoid stacking. So if 2 hours later, you think, I think I better take, my blood sugar is this high because after all, I did eat 2 donuts for breakfast, so I need to take a little extra. It knows how much insulin is still on board, and it will subtract that from what you think you want to take. Let me tell you, stacking doses, that's what we call that, is a very common reason for hypoglycemia, because people just, they don't realize that 2 hours after they took their meal bolus, there's still more insulin to come. It's not all done. And so that's a real important thing. And it's the kind of math you can't do in your head. It automatically does record keeping, sends reminders to the app to take it. Also, it will even remind you that you need to take your basal insulin. If you normally take it in the morning, you can put in a reminder basal insulin dose. And comes out of the box with a battery that lasts a year. So the pen lasts a year. At the end of a year, you just get a new one. So also, one of the things about pumps that a lot of people don't know, the limiting factor of a pump is that insulin and plastic don't get along that well. And that's why there's a limit on how many days you can have it in the plastic. Well, that's why in pens, like the regular insulin pens, it may look like it's plastic, but inside the plastic, there's a glass cartridge. And that's because that protects the insulin. And that's the cool thing about this. So let's look at some of the pens that we have. So we have the basic disposable pen. And they give you basal or bolus, right? And that's all. Like this one. This is the Humalog pen. Nice pen, works well, but and it's disposable. You know, it's interesting. Every once in a while, I'll have a patient that you just throw this away. That seems like such a waste. You know, we should recycle them. No, you can't really recycle those. I said, well, if you're concerned about that, we have reusable. We used to have some reusable pens. You just buy the cartridge, and I'd show them how it worked. And they go, no, I want this one. Yeah, you're really interested in the environment. You just drove down here from Santa Fe in an Escalade, but whatever. People like the disposable. People in Canada think we're just wasteful sloths because they won't have anything to do with disposable pens. They want reusable. Yeah, all around the world it's different. There are different attitudes in different countries. Now we have connected pens. They're connected with Bluetooth, with CGM, your continuous monitor. Now, these are a couple of the Novo pens. These are the reusables I've talked about. And they're gonna be connected. They're not right now. They hold rapid acting insulin. And right now, what we have on the market is called the InPen. And this is marketed by Medtronic. And it's really cool. And I've got one in my bag over there. So if anybody wants to play with it afterwards, you can come up and I'll let you play with it. So it talks to an app on your phone. Right now, it's connected to Medtronic's sensor, not Dexcom or Libre. And a lot of people who've used them all, Medtronic's is not the favorite, but it will be connected with Dexcom soon. You know, everything is coming soon. But right now, if you want to use a Dexcom sensor, it'll tell you what your blood sugar was 3 hours later. That's helpful. So it's got a 3-hour delay on that. So Lilly, Novo are working on it. They're working on, this is the Tempo. This is Lilly's product in process. This one's kind of cool because remember I showed you the Humalog pen? This little cap just snaps on and it's got all the electronics in there and you can dial and all that. And then throw away your Humalog pen, put in a new one, snap it on. So that one will be interesting. I hope it comes out with all the features they say it's going to. You know how that is with technology. These are all the companies who are in the process of developing connected pens. I know most of these you've never heard of, right? You know, Companion Medical, they're the ones that developed the InPen. You know, Lilly and Novo. Insulet, that's the company that makes the Omnipod. The rest of these guys, you're like, who are these people? So connected pens, this is a technology that a few years from now, you're going to say, well, we should have always had these, right? Let's talk about pumps. The first pumps we're going to talk about are what we call patch pumps. These are mechanical pumps. In other words, they're not electronic. And really cool little gadgets. This is called the Secure Simplicity. So it's a wearable patch. You fill it with either Humalog or Novolog, and you can give yourself a little 2-unit bolus click. Every squeeze is 2 units. So it's very discreet. And it's like a wearable insulin pen, right? So it's not your basal insulin, but you can, you only have to take that once every 24 hours. So you leave that at home, and then you can wear this for 3 days. How many of you think that sounds like a really cool product? You would wear that? You would do that if you had to take mealtime insulin? Yeah, it is. It's just now getting out there on the market. What? Yes, it is waterproof. All of these things are waterproof. Otherwise, we would all get pretty smelly in 3 days without a bath. The Vigo patch pump is a interesting little product. It's had a sordid life. So it's a wearable pump. You fill it with, Humalog or Novolog. It's got a flat basal rate. In other words, it doesn't have, you can't adjust it, but you pick a 20, a 30, or a 40 unit basal. It will give you that for 24 hours. You can do boluses with little 2-unit squeeze for up to 36 units for each 24 hours. Now, here's the bad news. Valentine, who makes that, filed for bankruptcy, so they're out of business. But a company called Zealand, Z-E-A-L ampersand, and isn't that cute? So Zealand bought them, and they're in the process of bringing them back on the market. How many of y'all think this sounds like something you would wear? And that's why Valentine went bankrupt. For the audience at home, there were no hands raised. It's complicated, but we'll see. Zealand, we'll see what they can do with this product. Now, let's talk about the AIDS, the automatic insulin delivery system. Okay. So automated insulin delivery, these are the new pumps, consists of 3 components. First, it has to have a continuous glucose monitor to talk to you. It does your blood sugar continuously, talks to the pump. You have to have a pump that does the delivery of the insulin, and an algorithm, or the brain, and that's what tells the pump what you need to be doing. So it sends the commands, and the FDA now allows each different component to go through its own approval process, so you can have innovation and improvements without waiting for the whole thing all at once. So let's look at some of these. So what do you choose? Which one? So Medtronic, has been around for a long, long time. They're now up to the 770G. So they have their own sensor. They don't work with anybody else. And it's okay. But I meet patients relatively often wearing a Medtronic pump and a Dexcom or a Freestyle Libre sensor, which then they don't work together. And so but the Medtronic sensor, they've always got something coming soon. And they say their new sensor is going to be a lot better. We have now the Omnipod. Y'all heard of the Omnipod? That's a little pod that you wear, and it is the pump. It's giving you the insulin, and you have a little controller to tell it, You program your basal. It is a full featured pump. So it's not like the first two patch pumps that we saw that were just mechanical. This is a full featured pump. So it does everything, but you don't have any tubing. Of course, if you knock this little sucker off, you just knocked off, I don't know, a couple $100, and it lasts 3 days. It holds about 180 units. It's really designed for people with type 1 diabetes. I always imagined if my daughter had type 1 diabetes, I could always just say, oh yeah, I just wait for that phone call, at 10 o'clock in the morning, like when I'm doing something like this, Mom, my pump just quit working because it ran out. And it doesn't say, okay, well, we'll give you another 4 hours. If you're wearing a regular pump with the tubing and all that, and yes, we tell you, you should change your insulin, your infusion set at least every 3 days. But if you're busy and you still got it, so you could, okay, let's give it another half day or whole day. It's nothing bad's going to happen. But if you have type 1 and it's like, we're done. And we go 6 or 8 hours before we go, no, not good. It's called DKA. So that was always one of my concerns with this. And they just now, we've had the Omnipod Dash. Now we got the 5. It's been coming soon for 2 years. Finally. So it works with the Dexcom. The Dexcom sensor talks to it, and it has become an AIDS, an automated insulin delivery system. And so that way it'll tell the pump, blood sugar's getting low, turn it off. Blood sugar came back up, okay, turn it back on. I mean, it's just really the coolest thing. Here we have the Tandem. Tandem came on the market, 10, 12 years ago, and has slowly and progressively stolen a whole lot of business from Medtronic. But there's a reason. Look at this. Touch screen, color, easy to read, the Dexcom sensor talks to it. See this? So on the screen, it's showing you what your blood sugars are doing. The sensors, it's telling you the sensor trace. It tells you, here's what your blood sugar is right now. Here's an arrow telling you, and it's on its way up. And here, a few hours ago, this big red bar, that's when your blood sugar got down to 70. It turned off the basal rate. And when your blood sugar came back up to 70, it came back on. Isn't that amazing? Oh, and let's say at lunch, you told the pump you were going to eat your sandwich and your apple like a good little person with diabetes. But you also then ate a cookie. It happens, right? To the best of us. So your blood sugar, the meal bolus that you gave it, wasn't quite enough. It was staying kind of high. The pump gives you little extra squirts to bring you back down. It's getting really close to an automatic pancreas. Not completely there, but we're getting closer. So this is a really great device. Now they just got approved for a new feature that it's like, finally, you can put your app on the phone and you can give yourself a bolus from the phone. You can tell the app, I can see what my blood sugar is. I need an extra 2 units because I'm getting ready to eat one of those little chocolate things that lady forced down my throat. And you can do it right from your phone, which is, you don't have to get your pump out Talk about discreet, because everybody's messing with their phone, right? What they don't know is you may be giving yourself insulin. Or you could tell your pump, I want to stop my insulin because I'm getting ready to go out for a 2-mile run. So something like that. So how many of y'all would wear something like that? Those of you, imagine that you have type 1 diabetes that would not wear a pump. Why? Why would you not wear a pump? You're not going to tell me, huh? It's because I don't want to be connected to something, like your watch, like your glasses. The tubing, is that what is the stopper? So those are the people who want to wear the Omnipod. So these are called hybrid closed loop systems, or AIDS. So you got to have a sensor, you got to have a pump, and you got to have a brain. So let's look at some of these in a little more depth. So here's the Medtronic's 670G. It has, in addition to, it will talk to the sensor. If you want to use a meter, a glucose meter, it will put that number into the pump. Oh, by the way, that's the issue with Medtronic. With their sensor is it's not quite accurate enough. You can't give insulin based on the reading from the sensor. Everybody does, but you're supposed to do a blood sugar. So, and to make their sensor be as accurate as it needs to be, you need to do at least 2 finger sticks a day. You're like, really? That's why Medtronic people are wearing a Dexcom or a Libre. It does have a very extensive report that you can get from your sensor. It has an easy inserter for the sensor. And now they're up to the 770G. You have to have it in manual mode for 48 hours, and then it decides to give you insulin, to put you into auto. It's a fairly complex system. It has a target of 150. People say, well, I want to run 120. No, we don't think that's a good idea. We're going to let you run 150. It does program carb ratio and grams, correction bolus, and the algorithm decides what your sensitivity factor is. So it's a little bit heavy-handed. Some people would say, I've been doing this for myself a long time. Can I just do, no. Let's look at the Tslim X2 with Control IQ technology. This also is an advanced hybrid closed loop system. So Control IQ is the brains behind this, and it's designed to increase the patient's time in range, the 70 to 180 sweet spot, and it does that. It automatically adjusts insulin delivery every 5 minutes based on a rolling 30-minute predicted CGM value. So if you're not wearing your sensor, Control IQ can't work. It's like blind. It has remote software updates. This is one of my favorite things. So used to, the patient would get a new pump, real excited, everything's good. 6 months later, they came out with this really hot doggedy big bang feature. Well, I want that. Blue Cross says, okay, you can have it in 3 years. No, you can't have a new pump. This one is good for 3 years. Learn to love it. and you had to wait to get a whole new pump. Well, what Tandem did is they said, we don't need to change out the box. We just need to update the software. So you just plug it in and say, upload software, boom. I know. And they've been doing this for years. They're the only one. So that's wonderful. You get the latest whiz bang feature whenever it comes out. So that's a cool thing. And then I told you about, you can give boluses from your phone, which is cool. And you can cancel that bolus request also through the phone. Here's a bigger picture. You can see what all the fun stuff on the phone. This one stopped the basal for a little while. Blood sugar started coming back up, turned it back on. You didn't have to do a thing. Okay, now some of the unique features are, it protects you from highs and lows, turning itself off, correction boluses, we talked about that. It shows the blood sugars from the CGM, the Dexcom G6, in the bolus calculator, just automatically. You go to, I want to do a bolus, and it says, okay, well, your blood sugar is 163 right now. And you don't, the nice thing about the Dexcom, it doesn't require any calibrations. No finger sticks required. And you can say, I'm going to be sleeping for the next few hours. And so it can set a narrower range. You could, I'm going to go exercise. So it sets a range that will protect you from getting low. And you don't have any criteria for staying in the closed loop. Okay, so here's the latest Omnipod 5. You can see it's just a little pod. I always thought, you know, where do I need another little bump on my body? Turns out I don't. It's talking to the Dexcom G6 electronically through the magic of Bluetooth. It controls to target, has an algorithm built into the pod. Well, what if I left the house and I forgot my phone? It's happened to all of us, right? But that's also the controller for your pump. What's going to happen? Nothing. It's going to keep giving you the basal insulin that was programmed in. But you can't do boluses without the phone. So turn around, go back home, and get it. It's got times of elevated hypoglycemic risk, like exercise, just like the Tandem. It has a mode for that. It's managed by your smartphone or a PDM. It's got a little controller if you don't want to use your phone. Or if you're the last person on your block who has not upgraded to a smartphone, and I have a lot of patients who don't have smartphones. Or this is something you may not realize. Oh yeah, I have a Samsung. Great. I got it at Walmart. Is it the same as my Samsung? Not quite, you know? So you have to go in. When I'm looking to start a sensor or something, and I need to know, is your phone going to be compatible to use as the receiver for your Libre or your Dexcom? You go into your Play Store or App Store and see if you can pull up that app. And there's some phones that you get at Walmart that look like a smartphone, Turns out they didn't get past 8th grade. And you know how it's like when you rent a car and it looks like a Honda Accord, but you get in, it doesn't have the electronic seats. You have to go, it doesn't have, you know, a lot of the little features. It's the cheaper version. So it's kind of like that. So you have to manage expectations. So when we're talking to healthcare professionals and patients about the hybrid closed loop systems, there's a few things they need to know. You have to bolus for every meal before you eat. Well, I don't know what I'm going to eat. Well, yes, you do. It's what's on the plate in front of you. And if you're not sure if you're going to like it, just give half of what you calculated. But if you wait, how many of you know patients or providers who think it's a good idea to give the bolus after you eat? It's not a good idea. It's what causes a lot of hypoglycemia, because that rapid acting insulin has a peak about the same as what carbohydrates do. If you wait and give the bolus after you eat, you're going to miss the peak, boom, you crash. So you have to really talk to people about that. Insulin automation cannot compensate for missing that meal bolus. In other words, you say, well, wait a minute, my pump will give me extra insulin after the meal, but it's not built to compensate for not giving that meal bolus. It can't do that. So you have to get people commit to giving a bolus every time you eat. You have to wear your CGM, because otherwise the system does not work. Got to wear your sensor, whichever kind it is. You have to have patience. You have to kind of have a Zen moment with hyperglycemia. Yes, you gave a correction to try to fix it. It's going to take a few hours. Insulin, when they call it rapid acting insulin, it's sort of rapid. It's not slow, but it's not really that rapid. And injected insulin, because, you think about it. If you're injecting insulin, you're injecting it into the fat, and then it's got to get absorbed before it gets to the liver, before it tells the pancreas, okay, you can quit making extra insulin. Well, if there are people with type 1, that's not going to even matter. For those, you guys, you start looking at food, you can smell food, and your body's like, oh, good, she's going to eat. Liver starts turning itself down. Your GLP-1 starts manufacturing from the gut. It tells the pancreas she's getting ready to eat. By the time you start to eat, by the time the food gets absorbed and hits the liver, the pancreas has already sent a squirt of insulin to meet it at the door. That's fast. We can't really replicate that with injected insulin. It could take 2 to 3 hours for a correction bolus to get you back to target range. And don't try to trick it. I have people all the time, they lie to their pump. It is, don't fool with Mother Nature, and do not lie to your pump. They'll do that. They'll tell it, I'm eating 30 grams of carbs, thinking that, okay, it'll give me enough insulin to bring down my blood sugar. I didn't really eat those carbs. And it could take, when you start on an automated system, it'll take at least 2 to 4 weeks to get everything all lined out and working. And hopefully you'll upload your pump and all of its data every week or two to your doctor, to your diabetes educator, your diabetes specialist, to get everything in range. Well, let's look into the future. I know it's not the prettiest pump. This is a pump created by iLet. And what do you notice first thing? Oh, 2 hormones. It's a bihormonal system. Insulin and what would be another really handy hormone to have? Glucagon. So, in other words, insulin turns down your blood sugar, glucagon raises your blood sugar. So, in theory, well, the glucagon is not totally stable. You can't like have it in a cartridge for a long time. Well, Zealand, remember I just mentioned that name? They have created a glucagon, a stable glucagon. It's called dasiglucagon. It's, biosimilar. And it is approved for use in the pump. And I was just sitting out there this morning reading on my phone a report from a conference that's going on in Barcelona right now. And they reported some data on the iLet pump, and it was doing a great job. It improved time in range by like 2.5 hours over standard care. So, it'll probably be a year or two before we see it on the market, and it won't look a thing like that. You're like, well, where's the buttons? Well, that's the cool thing about it. With glucagon and insulin, you don't have that many controls. It manages it for you. So we'll see. The one thing that is kind of a hassle, you've got 2 infusion sites. Well, let's talk about measuring glucose. When I started working, after I graduated with my master's, I'm not going to tell you what year, a long time ago, and I went to work for the state health department, and we got chem strips. The little sticks, you put the drop of blood, measure the colors. We were, no more urine testing. We finally had blood glucose monitoring. It was a miracle, right? And we thought that was just the bomb diggity, and it was. But now we've got glucose monitors, instant, tells you, here's what your sugar is right now. Not 10 minutes, not 10 minutes that way, right now. That's it, that's all you need to know. Well, then we also have continuous glucose monitoring. That gives us like 2 weeks worth of data. We've got fructosamine, we've got the A1C, and the CGM helps refine the information from this from the A1C. The A1C is like the gold standard, right? And there's a lot of really huge trials and data that tell us that A1C will help what it needs to be to protect against complications. So is it for everyone? Is CGM for everybody? Should everybody have that? Well, I want you to raise your hand if you think this person. What about type 1, people with type 1? Should they have a CGM? Anybody thinks they shouldn't? No, of course not. It's awesome for that. What about type 2s on basal bolus insulin? Yeah. What about type 2 diabetes on basal only insulin? Yeah. What about people with type 2 who are managing with just diet and exercise? Should they have a CGM? Only a few of you. Why not? Because it gives them a lot of information. What about people who just want to use it for weight loss and understanding carbs? They're out there. I couldn't believe it. About 6 months ago, I'm looking on Facebook and there's this company says, well, you know, you could use the NutriSense sensor. I'm like, that's a Freestyle Libre. That's not, they just put a little patch over it with their, and it's a weight loss program. Huh? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
It's 2/3 of my Instagram ads are for the CGM.
I know, there's actually several companies out there doing it. And I'm like, well, people who don't have diabetes, they don't have the ups and downs. Well, they do have a little bit, you know. So what they're selling is you go on keto diet, and if you sneak a piece of bread, you will see a little bit in it, and then the sensor will shame you. Well, are there other uses? How about if the sensor measured glucose and ketones? Would that be useful? Yeah, Libre's on it. They're on it. And lactic acids for heavy duty exercisers. So it'll be like a metabolic little measure. Imagine, you know, the SGLT2s, which we love, right? Jardiance, Farxiga, those. In about 4 to 6% of people with type 1, they get a pesky little problem called DKA. I know. That's bad. Yeah, it's bad. Did you end up in the wrong room?
I'm in your nose and throat.
Oh, good.
Don't do a lot of this.
No, well, that's bad. And yeah, there's a lot of people with type of SGLT2s are really awesome drugs. They're great drugs. And people with type 1 want them too. I want to wear that. I want to, except that it's a minor issue that you go into DKA. Or what if you have a kid with type 1 diabetes? If they go without insulin for 6 or 8 hours, they can end up in DKA. What if your sensor also had a ketone sensor? So you could see if they started to get ketones. Be cool, wouldn't it? It's coming, which I wouldn't tell you that except that they've already, their CEO was this keynote speaker at the Consumer Electronics Show. And he told everybody, the people of the company were like, you did what? Like, okay. Yeah. But anyway, that's awesome. Those are the kind of things that these sensors are going to tell us in the future. So CGM should be viewed as just another tool for managing diabetes. It provides detailed information on glucose patterns and trends. And patients have to be aware of the physiologic lag, because from, you know, it's reading it's reading interstitial fluid, glucose, not blood. So there'll be about a 10-minute lag. Most of the time, it's not a big deal. Occasionally, if your blood sugar is on its way up, this will be a little bit of a lag, but you get to where you get used to it. Now, we do have some language we have to learn. Mean absolute relative difference. That's the measure of accuracy that they use for CGMs, glucose test strips. You can find the MARD on the label, and it's how does it compare to a laboratory reference? And the lower the MARD, the higher the accuracy. So right now, the glucose sensors are all at about 9%. It's pretty darn good. And they're the Dexcom and the Libre, which one is more accurate, do you think? They're the same. Dexcom will tell you theirs is more accurate, but Libre will show you data that theirs is significantly more accurate, especially on day one. So like whatever. Then the other term you have to learn is non-agentive use. And this is a term that says that FDA uses to allow patients to calculate their insulin without doing a finger stick to confirm it. In other words, is your sensor accurate enough to give an insulin dose based on that reading? And the Dexcom and the Libre are. None of the others are. Do patients do a confirmatory finger stick? Not very often. So we have personal CGM. That's when the patient's using their own device. It's a standalone system, such as the Dexcoms, Eversense, the Libre 2, Medtronic's, or an integrated system. And these are the ones that work with the pump. The Freestyle Libre right now does not work with the pump yet, but they will be working with, I think, a couple of those connected pins. It's coming. So let's look at these. Here's the Dexcom G6. It's the current version. No calibration, no finger sticks. You put it on, it's good for 10 days. It's a simple insertion with this big honking thing, but you just hit the button and boom. It has a 2-hour warm up. So when you put it on, it takes 2 hours before it starts giving you data. You're like, 2 hours? It used to be 12 hours, so shut up. It's better than it used to be. And they have an urgent low soon. So it has an alert. It says, by the way, you are going low. Not now, but you will in the next 20 minutes. The Libre is this little button right here. No finger sticks. You just do a scan with your phone. Has customizable optional alarms. So you can set a low alarm, a high alarm, or you can say, I really don't need to know that I'm high, so shut up. The one alarm you cannot customize is an urgent low, and if it gets below 54, it's going to beep and wake you up in the middle of the night. It has a 14-day wear. It's reading your blood sugar every 1 minute, and it has a 1-hour warm up, and it's the lowest cost. I mean, they about killed Dexcom. Here, Dexcom owned the market, happily perking along, charging around $400 a month for their sensors. And Abbott hit the market with $125 a month for 2 sensors. Dexcom, you can't do that. Oh yeah, they did. And over the last 2 or 3 years, they came on the market and at this point have over 4 million users worldwide and 55% of the market compared to 45% for Dexcom. Nothing like putting your product on sale, right? Then they come out with a new version, with the one with all the alarms and everything, same price. They haven't raised the prices. I'm like, now that's a sneaky little marketing ploy, but it really is cool. It reads with your phone. I'm going to show you. So you've got your app. And it says that Hershey's little chocolate things will raise your blood sugar. Only one. Huh? Only one. I did have 4 strawberries before I ate the chocolate. It tells you a lot of stuff. It shows you how you've been doing, your time in range. Right now, at 100%. Your average blood sugar. It's got all kinds of stuff. And you can download it and get it. We'll show you the report. I love it. I really do. Thank you. Okay, here's the Guardian T-Connect, the Guardian Connect sensor. This is the brains behind it. This is the part you plug in. You have to recharge this with the battery. It goes for 6 or 7 days. It will talk to an app on either iPhone or Android. Has predictive alerts, a 2-hour warm up, and 2 to 4 finger sticks a day. I'm like, that's why I'm wearing a sensor, so I don't have to stick my finger. So, and their new one that's about to come out will still require 2 finger sticks a day. I'm like, did you guys not get that memo? How about, let's just implant the sensor. There you go, an implantable little piece of rice there. And you're like, well, that's awesome, that'll be great. Well, yeah, but now see this little black rubbery thing? That's the transmitter, so you have to put that over wherever they implanted. Oh, and every night you have to plug it in to charge it up. Oh, and did I mention the finger sticks? Still requires finger sticks to make a dosing decision. You have to do finger sticks to calibrate it. Huh? You know, I don't know. It's good for 6 months. I don't know. They kind of almost went out of business, and they say they're back in business now. You can see why, can't you? The directional arrows, this is a really cool thing. They all have directional arrows. It would have been kind of nice if they would have all done the same, but they are, you know, this is the Libre, this is the Eversense, this is the Dexcom. So you can see, they're telling you, are you staying about the same? Are you going up a little? Are you going down a little? Are you, oops, run for the juice? So coming soon to a pharmacy near you, we got new sensors. This is the new Libre. Now you're thinking, isn't it small enough? I mean, it is a small little button, right? It's going to be smaller, the size of 2 or 3 pennies stacked. And it still gives you a reading every minute. You don't have to do the swipe. It's going to be streaming to your phone. 14-day, which is going to go to a 15-day, because Medicare wanted them to, because they don't like 28 days. They want 30-day stuff. So, and the 1-hour warm up. The new G7, oh, this one's going to be out soon, like really, like in this summer. The Dexcom G7, oh, they did get the memo. We don't want that stupid transmitter that we have to snap on and off and keep track of it. Whoops. So it's built in, thank you. It's much smaller. They're saying it's going to come out with a 10-day wear, but it's going to go up to 14 or 15 and a 30-minute warm up. So, and it'll be out probably this summer. So those are the new and improved sensors. It's what?
Once the screen goes blank, it doesn't talk to that anymore, so you have to push the button.
Huh. Okay. Oh, no. They tried doing that again. Can you help me? There it is. So let's talk time and range. Time and range is what percent of the time are you between 70 and 180? That's the agreed upon target range. And here's 3 patients with an A1C of 7. It could be like that, it could be like that, or it could be like that. They're all 7. This thing is beginning to piss me off. So time and range, if we use time and range, this is cool. So this patient has 40% in range. This patient has 70% in range, and this patient has 100% in range. So you got a whole lot better picture of how their blood sugars are doing when you know what their time and range is. This is the new measure of control. It's beyond A1C, we're using time and range. Now let me show you the report. This is really cool. This is what the report looks like. It's got data, this is called the AGP. They took 14 days worth of data, gamushed it into one 24-hour period. So you can see what it looks like. So first, it tells how much of the time were they wearing their sensor. And here's the targets that we're shooting for. Here's their average glucose and their GMI, glucose management indicator. They couldn't say predicted A1C, no. So that means if you took this 14 days and you had that for 3 months, this is what your A1C would be. Here's the amount of variability that you have. We want, your target is to have less than 30%, 36% variability. And then here's our time and range graph. So here's our time and range target, 70 to 180. And this patient has 47% of the time in range. And now we're going to pick 2 things. I show this to the patient. I say, what does this mean? Oh, I am getting low a lot at night. And let's look at what's causing that. And what is this? Oh, I sometimes don't take my insulin at supper. Really? Yeah. So the black line is their average mean glucose over 14 days. The blue river is 25% above and 25% below. And the Bosque, that only works in New Mexico, is the 90th percentile of blood sugars and the 10th. So this is a real visual, but I still want more information. And there, it's going to give me the 14 days of how things actually went. And what am I seeing? Lows in the middle of the night. So this is telling me, like here, he got low, he ate his way out of it, had a big high. Low, got a big high. And here's the glucose variability. Both of these have an A1C of 8. So you can see the difference. Here's your Medicare wants you to no more test 4 times a day. They realized that was stupid. So you have to be on basal bolus insulin, at least 3 injections a day. And in your notes say the patient uses data to adjust their mealtime glucoses. Here's the billing codes for Medicare. You get paid for starting up a sensor, and you get paid every time they come in and you look at it. So the technology is rapidly evolving. Glucose sensing is the standard of care. The American Diabetes Association guidelines this year came out and said everybody should have a sensor. Patch pumps may make it easier. Smart pens will soon be the standard of care. Hybrid loop, closed loops are getting better, reducing the burden, but going to fully closed loop is the next thing on the horizon. That means you don't have to tell it you're going to eat. It's going to figure it out and give you a bolus. Questions?
You can tell her and she'll repeat it too.
I don't. It seems like it'd be a really good idea.
Repeat the question.
Oh, I'm sorry, she did. Did I have any experience with patients in prison? I said, I don't. It seems like it would be probably a good idea, but.
The equipment. So prisoners can't have anything electronic. They don't have phones. They steal things from each other.
Yeah, that would be a limitation.
Yeah.
Who had a question over here? Yes.
For the automated, do you need service for those with the Bluetooth to connect? Or, I mean, if you live somewhere rural?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. I'm so spoiled. I have all the service I need. By the way, for those of you, I have some samples of the Libre and Dexcom in my little bag over here. And so I'll head right outside. If anybody has diabetes, they want to try one of these, I'd be happy to let you try it. So thank you all so much. It's been great.
So if you're anything like me, I have so many questions. I don't even know where to start. I wrote them